This week's episode on Cup of Joe, we talk about the importance of genetics versus traits, planting date, Dicamba label discussion, agronomic update, and lastly, how we choose soybean varieties.
Hello, Joe Merschman here from Merschman Seeds. Welcome to episode 3 of Cup of Joe. Today we have Turk Regennitter, Pieper and Tommy Johns to talk about some of the subjects this past week that happened at Merschman Seeds. Turk and I had the privilege of attending a breakfast meeting over at Ealer Brothers in Thomasboro, Illinois this past week, and that's located just north of Champaign, Illinois. And what's really interesting about the Ealer Brothers company is they put out their own research book, and they're very, very customer focused. And one of the things that they had this year that most of the dealers out there did not have the opportunity to have is they had 4 trait platforms out there. They had LibertyLink, they had LibertyLink GT27, they had Enlist E3, and also Roundup Ready 2 Extend. So it gave them the opportunity not necessarily to compare varieties to each other, that was not their goal, but to compare trait platforms. And, last week we talked in this group here about, how do we pick our soybeans based on trait platforms, or do we pick it based on genetics? And they concluded exactly the same thing that we had. Turk, tell them what you learned.
Well, after looking at all the different trait platforms, they actually did confirm exactly what we've been saying, that there isn't any difference in the trait platforms. Traits are not what's bringing the yield. It is the genetics that is doing that. And the research that they did showed that. And as a matter of fact, I think Chris said that the last 3 years it showed that. So everybody has good genetics, but the key is to get the right genetics on the right field. And then the trait platform helps you shore up your weed program, whatever that needs to be. But genetics is number one, and having someone that knows how to place those genetics is probably even more important than that.
Yeah, and I got to tip my hat to David Ealer. He's been there doing this for 42 years, and he's got his nephew, Chris Ealer, and also Shelby there, and they just do a wonderful job. The other thing we wanted to mention about the meeting is Chris Ealer is coined the phrase "in pursuit of 100 bushel soybeans," and he's that guy that goes out there and plants early. If you've watched his social media posts, last year he planted on March 22nd, and I think he said he had 3 snows on it. And as well as, just a ton of really bad weather. But he still ended up close to 75 bushel acre yield with a Merschman LibertyLink soybean. And then also, I believe he said that even though his population was down to 50 to 65% of normal. So it's kind of interesting. He's not suggesting that we plant that early, but he's just saying that soybeans are a lot more forgiving than what we think. And he's been doing this early planting for 10 years. So if you really want to follow a really innovative guy, Chris Ealer, and I wouldn't be surprised he's going to be out planting in January this year to see if he can push it that far.
He said the key is that window after you plant, that 48 to 72 hours after you plant. You cannot have that sudden drop in temperature or big, huge rainfall event or whatever. So that's the key, is that get that 48 to 72 hours without a major change in temperature.
Yeah, I remember exactly what he said. He said that first drink of water that soybean takes, it can't be cold and wet.
Yep.
I mean, obviously it's going to be wet, but it can't be that cold water that shocks the plant. So even though he planted on March 22nd, I believe there was I think he said a 48-hour window where the temperature was rising.
He had soil temperatures that were right for planting even on that date. It changed 48 hours later. And so he was really pushing that window, he said, but excellent information at that meeting.
Joe, what do you think? It seems like the trend's kind of going to earlier planted beans, obviously. February is a little early for us, but what's your take on all of this?
Well, I told Chris when he planted last year, I said, I'll bet you 25 cents, because I never bet more than 25 cents. It's not about the money, it's about being right, just like at home with anyhow. So I bet him 25 cents he wouldn't get a profitable stand. Well, I had to pay him 25 cents. So I really think that's the trend. Farmers are getting bigger, but the key thing is to remember that 48 to 72 hour window where that first drink of water can't be cold the cold water. It's got to be warm. I mean, in fact, you don't want any water in that 48 to 72 hours, just like we talked about last week. So, really good dealership for us, and really innovative. And the only way you can get one of these books is to be a customer of Ealer Brothers. So, that's really interesting. Turk, I see you've got something that we haven't seen this week.
Yeah, we finally got a chance to look at the new Extendamax label for the Dicamba soybeans, and as we talked before, it did give some clarity on what some of the new rules are, and one of those rules is the cannot spray during R1. So that's a change from the previous label, and so now R1 you're done spraying, and so.
You know, for R1, that's first flower, right?
First flower.
First flower you see, that would be considered R1.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, well, I noticed in the Ealer book, they documented when did they see R1 on May 1st planted soybeans in Champaign County?
There were flowers in those plots on June 4th. So, and that was April or May 1st planting in those plots. And so, you know, effectively you're off label if you see a flower. And in Champaign County last year, that would have been June 4th on May 1st planting. So it's going to be very, very difficult to be in compliance with this label if you're going to do any kind of post-emergence spraying. And as we've said kind of all along, pre-emergence is probably the more realistic goal. I think Bob Hartzler just come out with a thing this week, basically
from Iowa State. Yeah.
From Iowa State, saying that effectively pre-emergence is really what you should be considering, because the chances of you being able to spray is going to be very difficult in season.
A very short window.
Very short window.
And that's why we've been, talking to our customers about the advantages of a LibertyLink system or the LibertyLink GT27 from the standpoint of, no buffers, no borders. The fact that you've got a herbicide that works very effective. Dicamba is a very effective herbicide too.
Yeah, great.
But you don't have some of the complications that you
It's
have.
the volatility that is the issue. If they can get the volatility under control, they'll improve this herbicide immensely. But right now, that is not the case.
Joe, we don't sell Extend soybeans. Why are we bringing so much information to our customers about Extend soybeans?
At the end of the day, we have to answer to our customers.
Sure.
In other words, and my father started this business and built this business on one thing: farmer first. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, the farmer has to have a profitable yield, and we want to offer him as much information as we possibly can so he can make an informed decision. That's one of the reasons why we're having a couple of herbicide meetings next week, one in Cedar Rapids and one in Burlington with Dr. Jason Norsworthy. And you've seen that on our website, and obviously we still got slots open yet. You can still get in next Monday if you want to hear somebody talk about all these issues, talk about the herbicides and everything. But at the end of the day, I think it's critical that we give farmers as much information as possible so that they can make an informed decision. And it's no different than the yield claims that are out there. And they're coming from every direction. They're coming from our side too. And, we've seen the yield claims of 5.7 bushel advantage. We've seen the yield claims of 2.1. Didn't you just see another one?
Pioneer just come out with the yield claim of 7 bushels.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't see any information on where that 7 bushels came from, but again, as we've been talking about, it's really the genetics. It's not the trait platform.
So what we're just trying to do, Tommy, is just do the best job we can to educate customers so they can make an informed decision and try to do it as fair and balanced as we possibly can, to borrow a term that's used out there. So that's what we're trying to do. And I hope that folks feel that we're genuine in this, because we do care about our customers, and we're doing everything we can to come to market with solutions for problems. Because I'll tell you what, being a farmer right now is not easy. I mean, they're balancing a lot of things to try to get profitability and to there's just so many options and so many rules and so many things that they've got to manage. And I have tremendous respect for farmers.
I think you hit the nail on the head. We really try to follow the philosophy that Bill Merschman set in 1954, and that's farmer first and farmer friendly. So I appreciate that because I know there's a lot of questions when it comes to extend soybeans and why we're talking about it so much.
Well, Ben, do you have anything that kind of hit this week home for you? Any customer contact or anything that some questions you had that you think are on farmers' minds right now?
Basically what we're dealing with out in the field, basically in our whole sales territory, is trying to get the rest of the crop out.
Yeah.
We're having some standability issues. Everybody's having standability issues. It's just not us, you know.
Sure.
The crop is definitely deteriorating out there. So I've been dealing with a lot of that in pictures and diagnosing different funguses on the bottom of corn stalks and stuff like that. We're seeing the Dexty stem borer is definitely been an issue for some of the guys down south. Beans going down at the crown. So
Deck-T stem borer is kind of like the corn borer of soybeans, isn't it?
Correct.
It goes in actually into the leaf petio, bores down into the stalk, and basically just eats that core right out of the plant. And then by that time, the plant is weakened. And then when you get like snow, like we've had this past week in many areas, and then also some wind, soybeans go down. You think, well, gosh darn, I got a poor standing soybean. When really you got Deck-T stem borer. But it's real easy to tell if you got Deck-T stem borer, isn't it?
Correct. You split the stem, and you're going to find the larvae right there in the bottom of the stem. And we've had some questions on how do we contain this, or how do we manage this problem if it's possible and you're not in a highly erodible situation. All you got to do is mix up the top 2 inches of the dirt, and you disturb that larva and allow it to freeze and die off. A little bit of tillage really is a really good option for management.
What I've seen is you can combine, and if you just get out your combine and look between the header and where you're throwing your trash, and if you look at the stems and you see a borer holding it, it's because what they do is after you combine, they go down into the root, and then they'll close that off. They'll take some mechanism to close it off.
They seal off that stem, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
that's
a little
kinda
bit of tillage and freezing definitely will handle some of that problem, because I know we had some questions on that last week.
Deck-T stem borer showing up in southern Illinois. It's pretty common in Missouri, Kansas, even in Nebraska. We've seen it. We have not seen a lot of it in Iowa so far. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
It's working its way north up the Mississippi River from some of the maps and charts that I've looked at, but I haven't seen it personally in Iowa yet. So.
okay.
Hey, Joe, I see you got a big stack of variety list here, and we were going to talk about how you pick some soybeans.
Well, I think that's a great question, Tommy. Is these are what I call the holy grail of looking at new material, and it's just literally like getting Christmas early when you get a chance to look at all the new products that are coming in the various trait platforms. And I'll focus mainly on LibertyLink GT27 and Enlist E3. And obviously we look at all the different characteristics, but the number one thing we look at is yield. We look at yield first. And as I've always said in the past, just because something yields doesn't necessarily mean that it should be something that should be advanced because it may not have the standability. Well, what else, Ben, do you need besides standability when it comes to soybeans?
You need standability. You need disease packages. We don't typically, we try to keep beans as short as possible for the standability purposes, but you got to have phytophthora protection. You got to have we try to find beans that are resistant to cyst nematodes, and you got to have everything.
Yeah, in fact,
aspect.
There's a whole bunch of markers now in today's world now. When they develop a soybean, and they can run it through the molecular marker lab, and we got markers for SCN. We even have a marker now for IDC, iron deficiency corrosis, phytophthora genes. And the list goes on, and so it makes it very effective quickly to see if we got an R or an S.
Okay.
So this page right here is just a piece of it. It actually goes on to this page, and then goes on to this page. This is all the yield locations, and typically when you look at one page, you're not looking at a whole variety of maturities. You're looking at something like, for example, 3.0 to 3.1. So these are all the new materials that we have, and then we have some common checks in there so we can see how we do. But
So you're looking at 30 to 50 different 3.0 to 3.1 style maturities of what we're going to be choosing, and you get to choose out of the top which ones we have for the best agronomic support.
And that's why you, the farmer, if you've got specific problems, you got to talk to our sales reps and tell them, hey, this is the problem I have, and then we can select for products that will work in your situation. So the fact that we're a regional company, we focus a little bit more closer to home. We don't have to have a product that works in Ohio and works in Nebraska. In other words, we can hone in on 400-mile radius around West Point, and that's what we do.
Thanks, Joe. That was really good information. It's really interesting hearing your standpoint on how you select soybeans for the different disease packages and trying to get our farmers, or our customers anyway, the best opportunity to have the most success on their farm. And also, Turk, thank you for bringing the extend information in. That's really beneficial.
I'm sure there's more to come yet, but we'll learn as we go.
Awesome. And Ben, I really hope those guys get done by Thanksgiving so we can all have a happy Turkey Day.
Yep, that's absolutely correct.
So, well, we appreciate everything. We hope if you guys have any recommendations or opinions on what we should be talking about or anything that you have for us, so just give us a text or email or a call and let us know what you guys think. Other than that, we really appreciate your time and look forward to episode 4 of Cup of Joe.
From sun